Good morning everyone, welcome to another video. My name is Ryan Roots, and in today's video I want to talk about vintage t-shirts, and in particular higher end vintage t-shirts. So I know vintage t-shirts isn't what a lot of you guys sell, but I wanted to make this video anyway to kind of show you what to look out for while you're out there thrifting or going to estate sales, or a lot of people don't know how to identify true vintage t-shirts. So in today's video I'm just going to show you some higher end t-shirts. We can look at the tags, we can look at the stitching, the date stamps, we can look at some particulars of some vintage. So if you're out there looking, you may see something that you've seen in one of our videos and okay, that's a piece that I should probably purchase. Now before I jump into it, I do want to say I am by no means an absolute expert on vintage t-shirts. Yes, I've seen thousands and thousands of vintage t-shirts, and we've been lucky enough to be able to get our hands on some more expensive items. But like I said, I'm no expert. There's definitely people who've been in the vintage game much longer than me, 20, 30 plus years, and usually I will look to them for help on certain items. But like I said, I do feel like I've seen enough vintage and I've sold enough vintage to at least be able to show you guys what to look out for. I do also have a new vintage wholesale box that came in today. It's from overseas, so I thought I could unbox that with you guys as well, and we can look at those t-shirts as well. So we're gonna talk about vintage t-shirts. I'm gonna show you some examples. We're gonna talk about how to identify them, and we're gonna talk about how to value them in the marketplace. So if you enjoyed today's content, make sure to hit the thumbs up button on this video and subscribe to the channel. And before we get into the actual video, I know you guys can see by the title is we sold our most expensive vintage t-shirts. And for those of you wondering, that's the t-shirt right there. So this is a 1994 The Mask vintage t-shirt. I don't know if you guys remember this movie, but one of the greatest to do it, Jim Carrey, The Mask from Zero to Hero. It is dated 1994, and it does have a back hit right there. It's on a Hanes ultraweight tag, size extra large. And this t-shirt sold for $1,250. So that's the biggest individual sale that we've had on a t-shirt in a little while. The next closest was an Eon Flux t-shirt that we sold for, I believe it was $1,125 overseas. So that was the next highest, but yeah, $1,250, really cool sale on that. Now, to be fully transparent, which I think is really important when it comes to selling vintage t-shirts, because a lot of people see these accounts with these high-end t-shirts and they're like, wow, you thrifted that for $1 and then you sold it for $800 or you sold it for $1,000, when in most cases that's not true. Not to say that you can't find t-shirts like this at thrift stores and estate sales, but it's quite rare to find them out there. Most of the higher end t-shirts that we get are from buying out other people's collections or from working with people who hunt these t-shirts all the day and then resell them to us for a higher price. So this shirt in particular, I actually bought for $1,000, which sounds like a crazy amount of money, but again, it sold for $1,250. So I made $250 on the one t-shirt, but I paid up for it. I paid $1,000. And I know, in most cases, you guys aren't gonna be doing that. So I understand that. So don't get me wrong. I'm going to show you, again, how to identify these tees so you can find them while you're out there, and hopefully you can get some good deals. I've seen it happen. I hope you can find a shirt like that for $2 and flip it for a ton of money. But I just wanted to be fully transparent. A lot of the shirts that we have here and a lot of the shirts that we've sold in the past, we have paid up for. Not to say that we're not making money on them, but we have definitely had to shell out some decent cash to buy the shirts. But either way, I was happy to get my hands on that shirt and happy to get it to the right home. Why don't we do this now? Let's jump over to my office and let's go through the box that I just got in the mail today, and then I'll pick out some more of these higher end vintage t-shirts, and I'll get close-ups and show you the tags and the stitching and the dates so you guys can get a better understanding of what a vintage t-shirt looks like, or what a higher end vintage t-shirt looks like. Okay, like I said, this box came from overseas. It came from Mexico, and I paid $1,650 total for everything that's in here. I believe there's 17 or 18 pieces. So let's break into this box first, and then, like I said, I will go through what makes a t-shirt vintage, how to value a t-shirt, and how to identify a vintage t-shirt as well. Actually, I think the best thing to do, because they're all kind of folded nice, I'm just gonna take them out of the box so that it's easier for me to go through them. By the way, from what I recall, most of this stuff is going to be vintage wrestling. I know that there's at least one higher end piece in here, so I will show you that as well. But I believe most of this stuff is vintage wrestling. We have a 1998 Stone Cold Steve Austin t-shirt. This one is front and back. Cool shirt. This looks like a Goldberg Who's Next shirt. This is on the old Fruit of the Loom clothing tag. So nice Goldberg graphic on the front, and then this one also has a back. big WCW Who's Next on the back. This is a shirt I've had quite a few times in the past on the Gildan heavy cotton tag. This is one of those NWO wrestling tees. Again, dated 1998 at the bottom. Man, remember old school Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? Nice little Fruit of the Loom size large one. Nothing on the back of this either, but you've got the big The Rock graphic on the front of it with the WWE licensing, and there should be a date on this one as well. Yeah, so this one's 2002. So The Rock 2002 t-shirt. Again, something to keep in mind. The value of vintage t-shirts is really what anybody is willing to pay for the item. And typically what we say in the industry is the shirt has to be 20 years or older for it to be considered true vintage. But like I said, this is a 2002 t-shirt, so it's really 1 year off because 2001 is now considered true vintage. But I'm saying that to tell you that even though this is not considered true vintage, there are still some 2000s, mid 2000s tees that sell for a really good amount of money. I mean, I've even seen 2010, 2011 t-shirts sell for really good money. So even though it's not considered true vintage, that doesn't mean that there's no value in the t-shirt. So just keep that in mind when you're hunting as well. Don't bypass something just because it's got a 2004, 2005 date on it. That shirt could still be worth a decent amount of money. We've got an all sport tag, and this is the Osborne family shirt. Pretty cool graphic on this one. I remember watching this show too. I remember he had the English Bulldogs running around, and I was like, I definitely have to get one of those dogs. Look at that graphic, man. How 90s is that, right? On the WCW 1998 tag, the big buff daddy print on the front. This one's good. This one's clean. Usually these have like really bad cracking on them, but this one's super clean. Nice. And then these have a back as well, I believe. Yeah, it says "Still the Stuff" on the back. Huge. This is a cool shirt. Yeah, nice big front graphic, nice big back graphic. That's a good example of a quality wrestling tee. Looks like we have another TNT tag and another Stone Cold Steve Austin shirt. Again, this one's just the front graphic, big Stone Cold spell out on there, full body shot, and dated 1998 again. Also, I'm glad that there's Stone Cold t-shirts in here because one, they sell great for us. They've always sold great for us. But two, I think it's true. I've heard that the same people that did that documentary, The Last Dance, about the Chicago Bulls, I heard that they're about to do a documentary about Stone Cold Steve Austin. So if that happens, now when the Bulls one happened, Bulls vintage t-shirts went crazy. So I'm assuming the same thing might happen with the Stone Cold shirt. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Vintage does follow trends, right? So when things come out and, when things get more popular, the t-shirts around what's happening there will get more popular too. A prime example of that is Grateful Dead t-shirts went up in value considerably when Nike released those Grateful Dead shoes. So because people were looking for the vintage t-shirts to match their new Grateful Dead Nikes, the value of the vintage t-shirts also shot up because people were paying $3-4 grand for those Grateful Dead shoes. So if they're paying $3,000 for a pair of shoes, why can't they pay, $200-300 for a Grateful Dead shirt? Looks like we have another Stone Cold t-shirt here, big Steve Austin on the front. And then this one does have a back. It says "Professional Hardcore Wrestler" on the back. I think that the neck on this one, the neckline, yeah, I'm sure actually. The neckline on this one has been cut and then altered. So it's been stitched back together. It's not a bad job, right? They just it looks like they widened the neck up a little bit. Maybe a professional hardcore wrestler was wearing this shirt, but they widened the neck up just a little bit and stitched it. It may hurt the value slightly, but I don't think it's going to hurt the value too much. We've got that Hollywood Hulk Hogan Lightning shirt. This one is on the old Toltex tag. Single-sided Hollywood Hogan hit on the front, flexing those Hulk Hogan buys. Okay, I think this is the first non-wrestling t-shirt that... Oh no, I showed the Ozzy Osbourne, or the Osbournes ones, but I think the rest have been wrestling. So this is a really, really cool Betty Boop graphic. It says "All That." This is all like glitter paint. Really crazy graphic. And this is one of my favorite companies that made shirts in the 90s, licensed by Freeze. Freeze made like the Space Jam t-shirts and all those ones, like the big Looney Tunes graphic. So I love Freeze. Super cool all over print on the front, and then continuing on to the back as well, it says "and more." And again, you've got that glitter paint all over it. Really nice example of this t-shirt. It has a faded out tag, but it is single stitch all the way around, and again, it's dated with that "Licensed by Freeze" at the bottom there. Next up, we have another Stone Cold shirt, 1998. It's actually kind of rare that you see them on the gray shirts. Usually they're on black t-shirts, so This one's actually pretty cool that it's on the heather gray. Again, licensed World Wrestling Federation, and it says, "'Cause Stone Cold said so." And down there, again, it's dated 1998. So good graphic, and a good piece for someone who maybe collects Stone Cold shirts and doesn't have one in this color. Next up, we got another Rock tee on the AAA tag. This one says, "The Rock, know your role." And wow, look, that's The Rock without all of his tattoos. He's looking kind of clean there with his big gold chain and bracelet. Crazy to see. Dated, again, 1998. And this one does have a back. It says, "This rock doesn't bleed." The only bad thing about this shirt is that it's a size medium, which kind of limits the market a bit. But I usually look for larges and extra larges. The best vintage shirts for us are extra larges, true XLs. So like 23 by 30, 23 by 29, 28. Those are the ones that seem to sell best for us. Next up, this is going to be a 2000s tag liquid blue. I'll show you an example of a 90s tag liquid blue as well so you can see the difference. I see this all the time, people selling this tag as true vintage, as a 90s t-shirt. So just be wary of that. This gray tag is not a 90s liquid blue print. It's a reprint in the 2000s. And actually this one is dated 2004. So this is a 2004 t-shirt, but still a really cool t-shirt. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon front, and big Dark Side of the Moon back graphic as well. Whoa, this one is crazy. It's on probably my favorite tag for music tees. It's a Springford Classic, made in the USA. This one is a size extra large, but I love shirts on this tag. They're usually like really good quality t-shirts. They're usually really nice and thin, typically 80s. But yeah, look at the graphic on this thing. It's from the Moscow Music Peace Festival, and you've got it in Russian down here as well with the Soviet and American flag. That's a pretty crazy graphic. It does have a back hit. Okay, yeah, so it's dated back here August 12th and 13th, 1989. And look at this lineup on the back. Bon Jovi, Scorpions, Motley Crue, Ozzy Osbourne, Cinderella, Gorky Park, Skid Row, Nuance, Brigada S, and it says at the bottom, it says "Make a Difference Foundation." This is a pretty amazing t-shirt. Wow. For the age, it's in excellent condition. It's got a really nice fade to it. The graphics are cracking slightly, but not too bad. The shirt isn't worn that bad. Tag's still there, no holes. Man, this is it's a really cool piece. This is the kind of stuff that I do get excited about. Next up on the Giant tag, old vintage Giant tag. This is one that we've had before. It's a summer sanitarium graphic, and at the bottom it says "Meet the Inmates." Let me show you the full graphic here. So I believe this was a 2000 tour. Yeah, I think it was from 2000. Again, "Meet the Inmates," big graphic on the front, and then it should have, yeah, so you've got the tour dates on the back, and featuring Metallica, Korn, Kid Rock, Powerman 5000, System of a Down, and then the tour dates down here, and it should, yeah, so it says Tour 2000 right up there. So 2000, this one is vintage, absolutely, 21 years old now. Next up, this is actually one of my favorite Stone Cold Steve Austin graphics. You've got the skeleton with the Stone Cold beer right there, and it's on the old WF tag. So that's the full graphic there. It says WF Attitude on the front of it, Stone Cold right there, and then on the back, it says 100% pure Hellraiser, again, with the WF licensing hit on the back. It's a good shirt. And then the last two shirts in here are rap t-shirts. One's like a true rap style t-shirt, and then the other one is an Eminem shirt. So this one's actually from the movie, and believe it or not, this is a super valuable t-shirt. It's from the 8 Mile movie. It's on the M&O Knits tag, and it should have, yeah, so it's got the back as well. It says "Every moment is another chance." Pretty crazy shirt. This one has a lot going for it. It's got rap, music, movie, Eminem. It's a good size. It's a size large. It's a clean shirt. It's in great condition. So this one we should do very well with. And then last but not least, this is definitely the most valuable t-shirt in this box, size extra large on the Made in the USA tag. We have a beautiful example of a 1971 to 1996 Tupac Memorial t-shirt. So a big graphic on the front of it. These are bootleg t-shirts, so these were not licensed t-shirts. They were made by people, but it makes them even more valuable because they're very rare. They're very hard to find. So a big graphic on the front, and then this one has the big graphic on the back as well. So that's everything that was in that box. Like I said, I believe there were 18 t-shirts there, and I paid $1,650 shipped to America. Let me know in the comments, do you think that this was a good purchase? Do you think that I'll make money on this box, or do you think that I'm crazy and I'm going to lose money? I personally think it was a good box. I think we'll make a lot of the money back on the Tupac t-shirts, and then everything will sell as it sells, and we should make some decent money on them. So with that being said, guys and girls, let's leave the office now, and I'm going to go pick out a couple t-shirts, and we can talk about, again, what makes them valuable, why they hold their value, and everything to do with what I know, my knowledge, my small amount of knowledge on true vintage t-shirts. Okay, so it's the next day now, hence why I changed my shirt. I didn't just change it in the middle of the day, but it's the next day now. What I've done, I picked out 5 vintage t-shirts from different categories. I'm going to show them to you, show you the tag, show you the stitching, the date stamps, all that stuff. So you can see like how to identify a vintage t-shirt. But before I do that, I'll do that at the end of the video. Before I do that, let's talk about how to determine the actual value of a vintage t-shirt. So the first thing that we need to determine is what factors actually determine the value of a vintage t-shirt. So in my opinion, and this is kind of in order, some things I guess you can mix around, but this is kind of in order. In my opinion, the most important thing is nostalgia. So is there an attachment to a vintage piece? For example, did you collect Marvel pieces when you were growing up? Do you have a fascination with X-Men? Is Wolverine your favorite character? So do you have some sort of an attachment to the piece? I think that's the main thing that drives the value of vintage. How much I personally like the piece, or what stories are attached to that piece. The next most important thing I feel is hype and influence. So hype being like, has a famous person worn the shirt? Has Travis Scott worn the shirt, for example, right? So like he'll wear a shirt and the value of it will just shoot up in the air. And then are there larger accounts in the vintage community, again, influencing the market? So, you know, if I have 100,000 followers on Instagram and I say, this is what's hot right now, this is what's really selling for a lot of money right now, that can definitely influence the market. So celebrities, again, wearing stuff, and then also people who are respected in the market, that can definitely drive the value of vintage up. Next, I think condition after that obviously plays a big factor. Condition isn't super important to some people, but you know, obviously, like if the sleeves are chopped off of something, or if the shirt has been cropped, that's really going to affect the value of a piece. So condition does matter when it comes to big changes or big issues with the shirt. Little things like little stains or little tears, or, you know, little, like, again, like around my collar, that's all fraying. That's stuff that doesn't really affect the value too much, in my opinion. Now, when you get into super high-end shirts, obviously those little things can affect the value, especially if you're selling to a collector who wants a pristine piece. But a lot of the time, those little, you know, issues with the vintage piece, a lot of the time people expect vintage to have little flaws. So it doesn't really affect the value. But again, the big changes like chopped collars, cropped shirts, sleeves gone, that's going to affect the value big time. The next factor I think is collectability. So how collectible is an item? Again, you know, did you collect Marvel stuff when you were a kid? Are you super fascinated with Disney pieces? Do you collect anime t-shirts? So how collectible the item is, I think, does play into the value of the shirt as well. The next biggest thing I think is size. So for us, the size that sells for the most money is size extra large. Larges and extra larges command a lot more money than smalls and mediums. It's just the way that it is. And XLs for us anyway are by far the best or highest selling price point. So size does matter. Now, there's things like, you know, old 80s, 70s, 80s shirts, like old raglan shirts that sometimes people are just buying those for the artwork. They're not even really buying them to wear. They're just buying them to remember maybe being at the concert, or they like the graphic, or maybe they're just looking for that one piece to complete their collection. So size doesn't matter as much as other things, I think, but it still does matter. If someone's looking to wear the shirt, the best size you can get is a true XL. Next is the tag. A lot of people only collect shirts on certain tags, or they'll only buy shirts on certain tags because they know how they fit them. So for me, for example, I love t-shirts on the old Fruit of the Loom tag, like 93, 94 Fruit of the Loom tags. Those are the ones that I personally like to wear because they fit me really well and I like the quality of the shirts. But a lot of people are attached to certain vintage tags. So if a graphic's on one tag and then a graphic's on a different tag, sometimes people will pay more money for the one on the tag that they prefer. So yes, the tag does matter. And then the other thing is if the tag is cut out, that can definitely affect the value of the t-shirt as well. Next, age. Obviously, age plays a factor. Like I said earlier in the video, 20 years or older is, that's what's considered typically in the vintage community. That's what's considered true vintage. So the older a shirt gets, usually it's worth a little bit more money. But again, those mid 2000s to late 2000s, those t-shirts can still command a decent amount of money. That's why I put age kind of lower in the list, because age does matter, but it doesn't matter as much as you may think. So another important factor, I think, is has the shirt been reprinted? So a prime example of that is the Pulp Fiction shirt. So that shirt has been reprinted over and over and over and over again. And I think when a shirt gets reprinted, the original, the true vintage one, becomes more valuable because people are obviously looking for that shirt. It's a desirable shirt, but the original is harder to get. It's the original. It's kind of like if there's an original painting and then that painting is, a whole bunch of prints are made of that painting. The original, the actual hand-painted one, the price of that spikes up because people want the actual original artwork. It's the same thing with t-shirts. Once a t-shirt gets reprinted, in my opinion, I've seen the actual price of the original t-shirt does start to skyrocket. The next thing I think that determines the value of the t-shirt is your market. So where you sell the items. If all you're doing is getting items and then basing it on eBay sold comps and listing items on eBay and taking whatever you can get for it on eBay, you're definitely not going to get as much money as, say, again, someone with 100,000 Instagram followers in a true vintage community. When they post a t-shirt, they can ask more money for that t-shirt. And again, that's just the way the market is, right? So because we have more followers on Instagram, we can ask more money for something because we have a wider base of an audience. So it's going out to more people and more eyes are seeing the shirt. It doesn't mean that we're going to price something double what it's worth, but it does mean that sometimes we can get a little bit more for an item on like a straight Instagram sale because it's going out to a lot of people than on, say, an eBay sale that's up for auction. And then lastly, one that I wanted to include is color. The color of the t-shirt I think does matter. Does it matter a whole lot? Depends on the person that's buying the shirt, right? So I like buying black t-shirts. I don't really like buying white t-shirts too much, but the color does seem to play a factor sometimes. One cool thing is a lot of people like true fades on vintage t-shirt because it shows the actual age of the shirt. Like this one, for example, right? So you can actually see that this was a black t-shirt, but the fade's really cool. You can tell that the only way to get this true fade is age. So you can tell that it is an older t-shirt just by the fade. But some people only like black t-shirts. Some people only like white t-shirts. Some people like only tie-dye t-shirts. So it does play a factor. I don't think a huge factor, not as big as some of the other things that I mentioned, but it does play a factor for sure, color. So in my opinion, those are the main things. I'm sure there's other things, but those are the main things I think that determine the actual value of a vintage t-shirt. So now that you know how the value of a vintage t-shirt is determined, the next thing to find out is, well, how do I price out this shirt? Like, how much is it actually worth? Where do I look to find how much the shirt is actually worth? So again, when you go to actually price out a vintage t-shirt, I think that there's a few things that you should keep in mind. Number one, experience. Obviously, if you've had the t-shirt before, if you've sold the t-shirt in the past, if you've researched the t-shirt before, if you kind of like know the price range just from past experience, that's the number one factor I think in actually pricing out vintage. Next is credibility. And again, sometimes credibility just means I have a huge following. I have a huge Instagram account or a huge Twitter or whatever it is. I have the market that makes me credible. Credibility also means a lot of past sales, people vouching for you, saying, I've purchased from this person before, they provide a good product at a good price. So when you have that credibility, it helps you find the correct price to ask for a t-shirt. And then lastly, sold comps on websites. So you can go look at past sales on eBay, Depop, Etsy, Grailed, even independent vintage websites. That is a way to find the value of a vintage t-shirt in the marketplace, keeping in mind that sometimes you're going to find much lower prices on certain shirts because there's people like me, for example, who go on these websites and look for mispriced shirts, and we snipe them. So we'll buy them so that we can then get them and sell them for the actual true value. So maybe I'll see something that's a $300 shirt mispriced for $100. I'll quickly buy that shirt, and then I'll be able to ask $250, $300 for that shirt in the right marketplace. And then one other thing you can do is you can reach out to someone with more experience than you. Like, for example, if someone shoots me a DM on Instagram asking me, now here's the trick, guys. You have to ask, if you're reaching out to someone for advice, they're taking time out of their day, you have to ask like in a really respectful way. Maybe even offer them something. I don't really know. I don't mind getting the questions as long as people aren't just like, hey, I found this shirt. How much is this shirt worth? If you're like, hey, I enjoy your videos. Thanks for making them. I appreciate you guys. By the way, I found this shirt and I'm having trouble identifying the value of it. Would you mind like giving me your expert advice or something like that, right? It just makes the person who you're reaching out to feel a little bit better about, taking the time to give you the advice. But that is one way to find the value of an item. Reach out to someone who has more experience than you and ask them in a kind, respectful way for their opinion. And then lastly, if you still don't know how to price something out, if you still, after doing your research, you still don't know what the value of the item is, one thing you can do is just throw it up on auction. Put it on a site like eBay, start it at a price that you're comfortable with, and let the market decide. Either that or just price it at a buy it now price that you're comfortable with, that you're happy with. And then when the item sells, be happy. Don't go, oh, I sold it for $400. I could have got $800 for it. If you've made money, if you're happy with the price that you got, it is what it is. Be happy. So in my opinion, that's how you determine the value of a vintage t-shirt, and that's how you price comp out to figure out how much to ask for the shirt. So I think that's where I'm going to end the information part of this video. I'm going to flash over, like I said, to these shirts that I've picked out now, and I'm just going to show you again some tags to look out for, show you the stitching, show you the dates and all that stuff. But I'm going to flip over to that in a second. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you found any value out of this video, please hit the thumbs up button on it. I've tried to include a lot of information in the video, but again, I'm going to say it. I am not the expert. There's a lot of really good vintage sellers out there that have been doing this forever. And some of them do have good YouTube videos out there as well. So what I'll do, I'm going to find some good YouTube videos from some of these people who are actually experts in the field, and I'll link them in the description of this video. So if you want to go learn more about vintage, check the description of this video. Go check out their videos, subscribe to their channels if that's what you want to do. But again, I do appreciate you all watching the video today. And here's some examples of some higher end vintage t-shirts.
Thank you.